nonsense are you saying?
You wake up every day looking for ways to break me, to remind me I am nothing. Since you knew you would never forgive me, why did you marry me?
Don't turn this around!
I should have died that night instead of marrying you!
Watch your mouth!
You turned my life into punishment. You punish me, you punish my children.
Stop!
You wake up angry. You sleep angry. You breathe anger. If you knew you would never let it go, you should have walked away that night.
Don't you dare walk out that door!
I'd rather face the world alone than rot inside your cruelty.
The night before their wedding, Roland stood outside the luxury hotel in Victoria Island, butterflies in his stomach, a small box in his pocket containing the tie clip his father had worn at his own wedding. The ceremony was scheduled for 10 in the morning at the cathedral. Everything was perfect. The venue was decorated, the guests had confirmed, the future he dreamed of was less than 12 hours away. But Roland couldn't sleep. He wanted to see Laura one more time before sunrise. Maybe give her the small gift he'd bought, a gold bracelet with their initials engraved inside. Maybe just hold her hand and tell her he loved her. So he drove to the hotel where she was staying with her bridesmaids. The lobby was quiet. He took the elevator to the 7th floor, room 712. He knocked softly. No answer. He checked his phone. No messages. She was probably asleep, he thought. He should just leave. But then he remembered she'd given him a spare key card weeks ago. In case of emergencies, she'd said, laughing. He pulled it from his wallet, hesitated, then slid it through the reader. The lock clicked. He pushed the door open slowly, careful not to wake her. "Laura," he whispered, "it's me. I just wanted to." He froze because he heard something. Laughter. Low. Intimate. A man's voice. Roland's hand tightened on the door handle. No, it couldn't be. He must have heard wrong. Maybe she was on the phone with her brother. Maybe one of her friends had brought a boyfriend. But his feet carried him forward anyway. Down the small hallway. Past the bathroom. Toward the bedroom. The door was half open. And through that gap, Roland saw something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Laura, his bride-to-be, in bed with another man. Their bodies tangled in the white hotel sheets, her head on his chest, his arm around her waist. Time stopped. Roland couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't move. He just stood there, his brain refusing to process what his eyes were seeing. Then Laura shifted. She looked toward the door and saw him. Her eyes went wide. She screamed. The man jerked up, scrambling backward, nearly falling off the bed. "Jesus, Roland, I can explain." But Roland didn't hear him. He was already turning around, walking away. His legs moved mechanically, down the hallway, out the door, into his car. He didn't remember pressing the button, didn't remember walking through the lobby, didn't remember getting into his car. The next thing he knew, he was sitting in his apartment parking lot in Lekki, staring at nothing. His phone buzzed. 17 missed calls. Laura. He turned it off. He couldn't believe he just saw his bride-to-be and their boss at work, having fun a night to their wedding. She showed up at his door 2 hours later. It was 2 in the morning. Rain pounded against the windows, the kind of heavy Lagos rain that flooded the streets in minutes. Roland heard the knocking but didn't move from the couch. "Roland, please." Her voice was muffled through the door. "Please, let me in, please." He closed his eyes. "I'm not leaving until you talk to me." More knocking. Harder this time. Roland stood up slowly, walked to the door, and opened it. Laura stood there, completely soaked. Her mascara had run down her cheeks in black streaks. Her hands were shaking. She looked at him and her face crumpled. "Roland!" He stepped aside. She stumbled in, nearly falling. Then she dropped to her knees right there in the entryway. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please let me explain. Please." Roland closed the door. He didn't help her up. He just stood there looking down at her. "Talk." The word came out cold, empty. Laura took a shuddering breath. Before you started working in our company, before I even met you, we were together. Roland's jaw tightened. When you came into my life, everything changed. I fell in love with you, Roland. Real love, not whatever I had with him. I ended it immediately. Clearly not. I did. Her voice broke. I swear to God, I ended it. But he wouldn't accept it. He kept calling, showing up at my flat, sending flowers to my desk. And you never thought to tell me. I didn't want to ruin what we had. I thought he'd eventually give up and move on. But he didn't. Laura shook her head, tears streaming down her face. 2 days ago, he called me. He said if I didn't meet him one last time, he would tell you everything, and he would make sure we both got fired. So you slept with him? No, I only agreed to meet him to talk, to beg him to leave us alone. But when I got there, he had wine. He was so manipulative. He kept saying it was my fault for leading him on, that I owed him closure. And you just went along with it.
I panicked, Roland. I was terrified. I thought if I didn't, if I refused, he would destroy everything. Our jobs, our wedding, our future. So I thought maybe if I gave him what he wanted one last time, he'd finally let go. Roland stared at her. You gave him what he wanted? I'm so sorry. The night before our wedding? I know. While I was at home excited to marry you? Roland, please, get out. Laura's head snapped up. What? Get out of my house now. Roland, no, please, I love you. I made a terrible mistake, but I love you. We can fix this, There's nothing to fix. Don't say that. Please don't say that. Forgive me. Roland walked to the door and opened it. The rain was still pouring. Leave. Laura didn't move. She just knelt there, sobbing, shaking her head. Roland waited. Finally, she pushed herself to her feet. She walked to the door, stopped in front of him. No problem, Roland. I'll cancel the wedding tomorrow, she whispered. I'll tell everyone it was my fault. I'll take all the blame. Roland looked at her for a long moment. Then he said something that surprised even himself. No. Laura blinked. What? Don't cancel the wedding. But you just said, I'll still marry you. Her eyes widened in shock. Roland, don't keep me waiting at the altar tomorrow, he said with finality in his tone. You can't be serious. I am. Why? Roland didn't answer. He just closed the door. The wedding happened exactly as planned. The cathedral in Lekki was packed with guests. Laura walked down the aisle in her white wedding gown, looking beautiful and terrified. Roland stood at the altar in his navy blue tuxedo, his face calm. They exchanged vows in front of 200 guests. They kissed when the pastor pronounced them husband and wife. Everyone clapped, everyone cheered, the women ululated. The reception was at a luxury event center on the island. The jollof rice was perfect, the small chops were plenty, the DJ played all the right songs. But Roland barely heard any of it. He smiled for the photographs, he danced with his new wife, he cut the cake, he sprayed money on the dance floor. He did everything a groom was supposed to do. But inside, he was empty, hollow, already gone. 3 months into their marriage, disaster struck. Roland came home from work to find Laura sitting at the dining table, holding a letter. Her hands were shaking. What's wrong? He asked. She looked up at him with red eyes. I got fired. What? Why? They said my performance has been declining. They said it's not a good fit anymore. That's madness. You've been there for 4 years. Your reviews have always been excellent. His phone buzzed. An email from HR. Subject, termination notice. Roland's blood ran cold. He opened it. Due to recent concerns about professional conduct and workplace performance, we regret to inform you. He didn't need to read the rest. Marcus, Laura whispered. He did this. He promised he would, and he did. Roland set his phone down carefully. We'll be fine. We have savings. But the savings didn't last long. Bills piled up. Rent, NEPA bills, water, groceries, car maintenance. 2 months later, they were barely managing. Roland took odd jobs, Uber driving, warehouse work, anything he could find. Laura did the same, but it wasn't enough. They started fighting. About money, about the past, about everything. The small flat in Aja that once felt cozy now felt like a prison. One night, Laura came home with an idea. What if we started our own business? Roland looked up from the couch. With what money? We could pool what's left of our savings, start small, a retail shop, something simple. Laura, please Roland, I can't keep living like this. We need to try something. So they did. They rented a small shop in a busy market in Ikeja. They bought inventory, clothes, shoes, bags, phone accessories. They worked 16-hour days getting everything ready. And then they opened. For the first few weeks, business was slow. But gradually, customers started coming. Word spread. Sales increased. Money started flowing again. For the first time since the wedding, Roland felt a flicker of hope. Maybe they could make this work. Maybe they could survive this. Then the police came. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Roland was restocking shelves when the door burst open. 6 officers stormed in, some in uniform, some in plain clothes. Nobody move, Laura screamed. Customers scattered. Roland raised his hands. What's happening? What's going on? You people are under investigation for selling contraband goods. That's a lie. We're not selling anything illegal. Shut up. They tore through the shop, opened boxes, emptied shelves, dumped everything onto the floor. One officer held up a sealed package from the back room. Found it. That's not ours, Laura cried. We didn't put that there. Save your story for the station. They seized everything. Every piece of inventory. Every product. Every naira they'd invested. Gone. The lead officer handed Roland a card. If you want your goods back, you people will need to settle. 2 million naira. Roland stared at him. 2 million naira? We don't have that kind of money. The officer shrugged. Then I guess your business is finished. They left. The shop was destroyed. Laura sank to the floor and sobbed. Roland just stood there, numb. He knew what this was. It wasn't random, it was extortion. And he knew for sure some of their competitors in the market would definitely be involved. But they had no choice. Without their inventory, they had nothing. That night, he sold his watch and his car. Then he called everyone he knew. Friends, former colleagues, distant relatives. He begged, he borrowed, he scraped together every naira he could find. In 3 days, he had 1,500,000 naira. He gave it all to Laura. Go to the station, try to negotiate, get our goods back. She looked at him with swollen eyes. Roland, just do it. She left. Roland waited. Laura came back the second day because the matter was resolved late into the night, so she had to stay in a hotel and tell her husband she would be home first thing the next morning. She walked through the door carrying bags of our merchandise, and she still had the money. All of it. Roland stared at her. How? Laura set the bags down carefully. There was an elderly man at the station. He overheard me talking to the officer. He pulled me aside after and said he'd help. Help how? He settled them. He paid everything. He said he didn't want anything in return. He said he saw me as his daughter and felt pity that if she were to be his daughter, he wouldn't just look away. That's why he helped. Roland's eyes narrowed. An elderly man? Yes. Just helped you out of kindness? Yes. And asked for nothing. Laura met his gaze. Yes. Roland turned away. Roland, please don't. I'm tired, Laura. I'm going to sleep. He walked to the bedroom and closed the door. But he didn't sleep. He lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, doubt eating away at him like termite in wood. 3 months into their marriage, Laura told him she was pregnant. She was smiling when she said it. Hopeful. Like, maybe this would fix everything. Roland looked at her stomach and felt nothing. Are you sure it's mine? The words came out before he could stop them. Laura's face went pale. How can you ask me that? How can I not? Roland, I haven't been with anyone else since the night before our wedding, or since the mysterious old man who helped you. That's not fair. None of this is fair. Laura's eyes filled with tears. This is your baby, Roland, our baby. So you say. She turned and walked out of the room. When the twins were born at the General Hospital in Bagada, the nurse placed them in Roland's arms, a boy and a girl. tiny, perfect, innocent. Look at them, Laura whispered, exhausted but beaming. Look at our children. Roland looked down at their small faces and felt nothing but cold suspicion. He handed them back to the nurse. I need some air. He walked out of the hospital and sat in his car in the parking lot. And he made a decision. He would provide for these children. He would keep a roof over their heads, feed them, clothe them, but he would never accept them as his own. The years passed slowly. Roland worked multiple jobs. He paid the rent, he bought food, he came home, but he never engaged. When the boy reached for him, Roland turned away. When the girl tried to climb into his lap, he stood up and left the room. When they cried, he didn't comfort them. When they laughed, he didn't smile. Laura tried everything. She begged him to bond with them. She brought the children to him constantly. Please, Roland, just hold them, just once. But he refused. Every time he looked at them, he saw the hotel room. He saw Laura in bed with another man. He saw years of betrayal and lies, and he couldn't let it go. The neighbors whispered, that man doesn't even carry his own children. He treats them like strangers. Something is not right in that house. But Roland didn't care what anyone said. He had built a wall around his heart, and nothing could break through. The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday night. The twins were 4 years old. They had been asking about their father all day. Why doesn't Daddy play with us? Why doesn't Daddy love us? Laura finally snapped. She walked into the sitting room where Roland sat watching the evening news. We need to talk. Not now. Yes, now. She grabbed the remote and turned off the TV. Roland looked up at her, annoyed. I'm leaving, Laura said quietly. What? I'm taking the children and I'm leaving tonight. Roland stood up. You can't just watch me. She went to the bedroom, came back with 2 small bags. Then she picked up the twins, one in each arm. They were confused, scared. Mommy, where are we going? Somewhere safe, my darling. Laura walked to the door. She stopped and looked back at Roland one last time. He stood there in the middle of the sitting room, his face unreadable. I'm sorry I made a mistake 6 years ago, Laura. But these children didn't do anything. They've done nothing wrong, and you've punished them every single day of their lives. I can't stand this again. What you should have done 6 years ago is what I'm doing now. Walk away. Laura, Roland reached out but withdrew. I hope one day you realize what you've lost. She opened the door and walked out into the rain. Roland listened to her footsteps going down the stairs, listened to the gate open and close, and told himself he was relieved. 1 year later, Roland met Karima at a business networking event in Ikeja. She was beautiful, light-skinned, well-spoken, everything Laura wasn't. They started talking. Within 6 months, they were married. A quiet registry wedding. No big ceremony this time. And for a while, Roland thought he'd finally found peace. Karima never asked about his past, never pushed him, never made him feel guilty. She just loved him. Or so he thought. 3 months into the marriage, Karima came to him with news. I'm pregnant. Roland's face lit up in a way he hadn't in years. Serious? She nodded, smiling sweetly. I'm so happy, Roland. Me too. She took his hand. I want to make sure our baby is protected, safe. Of course. Maybe you should put your properties in my name, just temporarily, for legal protection. Roland hesitated. Is that really necessary? It's standard. My uncle is a lawyer. He recommended it. I don't know, Karima. Her face faltered. Don't you trust me? Of course I trust you. Then what's the problem? Roland looked into her eyes and made the biggest mistake of his life. Okay, I'll do it. 2 weeks after he transferred everything, the shop, his savings, the land he'd bought in Ikorodu, the police showed up at his workplace. They found drugs wrapped in black nylon in his desk drawer. Drugs he'd never seen before. You are under arrest. What? No, those are not mine. I don't know how they got there. Tell that one to the judge. They handcuffed him in front of his entire office, walked him out like a common criminal. His staffs watched in shock. At the station, witnesses came forward. People he worked with, people he trusted. They all gave statements against him. Detailed accounts of his alleged drug dealing, how he'd been acting suspicious, how they'd seen him with strange packages. Roland sat in the interrogation room, stunned. This couldn't be happening. He called Karima. No answer. He called again. Her number was switched off. He called his family. No one picked. He called his friends. No one would help him. No one believed him. Within 3 days, he was formally charged. His lawyer was overworked and barely looked at his case. Just plead guilty, the man said. Make this easier for everyone. Roland sat in the holding cell and realized the truth. Karima had never been pregnant. She'd played him from the start, and he'd given her everything. But then, something unexpected happened. Laura showed up. Roland was brought to the visiting area, and there she was. Older, tired, but still determined. "What are you doing here?" he asked through the metal bars. "I heard what happened." "How?" "It doesn't matter. I'm getting you out." Roland shook his head. "Laura, you don't have to do this." "Yes, I do." "Why? After everything I did to you? After how I treated you and the children? After..." "Because you're still the father of my children, whether you admit it or not. And because you saved me from public humiliation 6 years ago at the altar." Roland's throat tightened. "I don't deserve your help." "No," Laura agreed. "You don't." She stood up to leave, "But I'm giving it anyway." Laura sold her small provisions shop. She borrowed money from everyone she knew. She went to her church, to family members, to old friends. She hired a lawyer, not the best, but someone who would fight. She attended every hearing. She gathered evidence. She fought. And 8 months later, the charges were dropped. New evidence came to light. CCTV footage from a neighboring office. Testimony from a cleaner who saw someone else plant the drugs. Roland was released. When he walked out of Kirikiri prison, Lola was waiting outside. He saw her and his legs gave out. He fell to his knees right there on the dusty ground, and he sobbed. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. After everything." Laura helped him to his feet. "Come, let's go." Over the next few years, Roland tried to rebuild. He and Laura didn't get back together, but they stayed in contact. He started seeing the twins more regularly, every other weekend, then every weekend. But even then, there was distance, a wall he couldn't break through. He still couldn't fully let himself believe they were his. He bought them things, paid for their school fees, showed up when Laura asked, but he never called them his children, never introduced them as his son and daughter, just the kids. Then came the phone call that changed everything. Roland was at work when his phone rang. Laura. "Roland, you need to come to the hospital, now." His heart stopped. "What happened?" "It's our son. He collapsed at school. They think there's something wrong with his heart. They need to do a blood transfusion urgently." Roland dropped everything. He ran to the general hospital in Babada. When he arrived, Laura was in the hallway, pacing. "Where is he?" "Inside. They are trying to stabilize him now." A doctor emerged from the emergency room. "We need the blood immediately." "Check him, sir," Laura said, "since you said mine is not compatible." They looked at Roland. "We need to test you as well." Roland nodded, not sure if his blood will match since the boy is not his son, or so did he thought. He followed them. They drew his blood, and then he waited. The minutes felt like hours. Laura sat beside him, silent, both of them staring at the wall. An hour later, the doctor returned. He was holding a piece of paper. "Mr. Roland?" Roland jumped to his feet. "Did it match? Is he okay?" "He's stable. The transfusion was successful." Roland exhaled with relief. His knees nearly buckled. "But there's something I need to show you." The doctor handed him the test results. Roland took it with shaking hands. His eyes scanned the page.
medical terminology he didn't understand, numbers, percentages, charts. And then he saw it in bold letters. Paternity test result, positive match. Biological father, confirmed. The paper slipped from Roland's fingers. It floated to the ground in slow motion. He stumbled backward. Laura caught his arm. Roland? He couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Because for 6 years, he had convinced himself these children weren't his. For 6 years, he had kept them at arm's length. For 6 years, he had refused to call them his own. And all of it, every single moment of coldness, every rejection, every time he turned his back, had been based on a lie. A lie he told himself. They were his.
They had always been his. Roland sank into the plastic hospital chair and he wept. Not quietly, not with dignity. He wept like a man who had just realized he'd destroyed the most precious thing in his life with his own hands. Laura sat beside him. She didn't say anything. She just placed her hand on his shoulder and let him break. Roland's son recovered fully. The doctor said it was a close call, but he would be fine. But Roland didn't know if he would ever recover. Because now, when he looked at his children, really looked at them, he saw everything he'd missed. Their first steps, their first words, their first day of school. 6 birthdays he'd attended but never celebrated. 6 Christmases where he bought gifts but never wrapped them himself. 6 years of Uncle Roland instead of Daddy. The twins were 6 years old now. They were smart, funny, loving. His daughter had Laura's smile. His son had his eyes. How had he never seen it? And they barely knew him. He was a stranger to them, a man who showed up sometimes, who gave them money for sweets but never stayed to watch them eat it, who smiled but never hugged them, and it was all his fault. One Saturday evening, Roland asked Laura if he could talk to the children. She hesitated. They were in her small sitting room in Aja. The twins were watching cartoons. Roland, please, I need to try. She finally nodded. Children, come. Uncle Roland wants to talk to you. They came over, curious but cautious. Roland sat on the edge of the sofa. They stood in front of him, waiting. Sit down, he said softly. Please. They sat. Roland's throat tightened. Where did he even start? I want to tell you both something, he began, and I need you to listen carefully, okay? They nodded. I haven't been a good father to you. The girl frowned. Father? Roland's eyes burned. Yes, father. I'm your daddy. The children looked at each other, confused. But your Uncle Roland, the boy said. I know that's what I told you to call me, but I was wrong. I'm not your uncle. I'm your father. Silence. The girl's eyes filled with tears. Why didn't you tell us before? Roland's voice cracked. Because I was foolish. I was angry at your mother for something that happened a long time ago, and I let that anger stop me from loving you the way I should have. You are angry at Mommy? The boy asked. Yes. Is that why you don't stay with us? Yes. But it's not our fault. Roland shook his head, tears streaming down his face. No, it's not your fault. It was never your fault. I was wrong. I was so wrong. The children stared at him. Then the girl asked quietly, Do you love us now? Roland nodded, unable to speak. Yes, he finally managed. I love you. I've always loved you. I was just too blind to see it. So you're our daddy, for real? For real. Can we call you daddy? Roland's voice broke completely. Please, I would love that. The children looked at each other again, then back at him. Can we hug you? The girl asked. Roland opened his arms. Please. They hesitated for just a moment, then they ran to him. And for the first time in 6 years, Roland held his children, really held them, and he felt the weight of every moment he'd wasted, every hug he'd refused, every bedtime story he'd never read, every scraped knee he'd never bandaged, all of it crashed over him like a wave. Laura stood in the doorway watching, silent tears running down her face. Time doesn't forgive cruelty. It doesn't give you back the years you threw away. Roland learned that the hard way. He couldn't undo the damage. He couldn't erase the coldness. He couldn't take back the rejection, but he could try. Every single day for the rest of his life, he could try, and so he did. He showed up, not just on weekends anymore, every day. He picked them up from school, he helped with homework, he read them bedtime stories, he learned their favorite foods, he attended their school programs, he became the father he should have been from the beginning. But late at night, when the house was quiet and the children were asleep, Roland would sit alone and he would remember. The hotel room, the betrayal, the anger that consumed him, and he would realize something painful. Laura had made one mistake, one terrible mistake born out of fear and manipulation. But he had made 1,000 mistakes over 6 years, deliberate, cruel, unforgiving. She had hurt him once, but he had hurt 2 innocent children every single day. He had looked into their faces and chosen coldness. He had heard them call for him and turned away. He had watched them grow and refused to be part of it. And that was a truth he would carry for the rest of his life, a weight that would never lift. One evening, as he tucked his daughter into bed, she looked up at him. "Daddy?" "Yes, my love." "Are you going to leave us again?" Roland's heart shattered. "No, never. I promise you." "You promise? "I promise. She smiled and closed her eyes. Roland kissed her forehead and walked out of the room with tears in his eyes, because he knew the truth. He had already left them once, for 6 whole years, and no amount of promises could change that. Roland learns that unforgiveness doesn't just poison your own soul. It destroys everyone around you. It punishes the innocent for the sins of others. It turns love into suspicion. And by the time you finally see the truth, the damage is already done. You can apologize. You can change. You can try to make it right. But you can never get back the time you wasted. The moments you missed, the love you withheld, those are gone forever. And that, Roland realized, was the cruelest punishment of all. Not what Laura did to him, but what he did to himself and to his children. The children who had been his all along. Thanks for watching. Let us know your thoughts about this story in the comment section. Subscribe to support us and for more interesting stories like this. See you in the next video. Have a great day.